Alright, welcome. My name's JB and welcome back to the channel here. I'm trying to walk through this thing and give you a little demonstration of this Mossberg 22 802 Plinkster. And we'll just try to walk through it and just to go from there. Alright, now the weapon is already broke down, but I'm just going to briefly walk through how to break this thing down. Now, first of all, you want to check that make sure that it's unloaded. Now, this particular weapon has a magazine. So this is your magazine release. So you drop your magazine from here, then you check, then open your bolt, pull that back out, and make sure your breech here doesn't have any ammo whatsoever. Now, the way you get the bolt out of the assembly is that the manual tells you, in the Mossberg manual, it tells you to put the weapon on safety. Okay, your weapon here is locked down in the bolt. Keep your weapon here on safety, unrack it, pull it back till it stops, and as it stops, put it on fire, and then pull your trigger and hold the trigger, and then it's going to be a little resistance at first, but hold your trigger and then slide that bolt all the way out. Okay, and then basically from there you're getting close to cleaning. Now, one thing that I found, and it's kind of misinformation, if you will, because it doesn't really go into a lot of detail on the Mossberg website as far as how to clean it. Now, it tells you to remove the bolt and then run a rod through the breech side and then clean the weapon that way. But there's a snag, and this is where we run into. Okay, and so the snag is that if you look inside of the back of the breech here, this is what you'll see. Okay, you're going to see that lever, which is about right there, that your rod is going to hit that, and you will not be able to get your rod straight to run all the way down that barrel in order to clean that. Okay, that's going to be in the way. Alright, so sorry about that. It's just I don't have a production video crew for photography and all that lined up here where I can do this. I'm basically doing this at my workstation, but you get the gist. So you're looking down the barrel where the bolt went through, you see that rod. That rod or that lever is part of this trigger housing, is this right here. Now, this thing here is already completed. Now, I'm sitting here trying to rack my brains, trying to figure out how in the world can you run this rod down here without completely breaking this thing down. You can't. Okay. Now, I've noticed a lot of these guns now, they're the trigger assemblies and all this because of saving money. I get it, but for the long term, I don't think these trigger houses are going to hold up long term because they're all plastic. As the previous video that I showed as a Marlin 22 that I have, part of that trigger housing that was made in the 80s is plastic, and part of that has cracked. I had another Marlin plastic trigger housing. That stuff, it gets dried out over time, guys. It is what it is. Okay, you just have to realize that when you're buying this stuff, it's not going to last like your great granddaddy's shotgun like I have. I got a shotgun that's over 100 years old, and that thing is all steel. Okay, that stuff is made to last. This stuff is not. Okay, but anyhow, it is what it is. But we're going to move on. Alright, so we've got the bolt assembly that is removed. Okay, so what we need to do, we cannot clean this thing like it's supposed to be to get here to run the rod completely, because we have, like I said, we have that lever from the trigger housing that is up here. Now, guys, the only way to get that rod to run straight is that you have to remove this. Now, that lever is part of this right here. Okay, this is what you're hitting, is this right here. Okay, this thing here, as you can see, okay, get my lighting here correctly. Okay, as we see, this thing here is just like that right there when it's in the gun. It will not come all the way back and lay back like that because the way the gun is notched. Okay, that circumference there is only going to allow a limited area to play with here. Okay, But basically what you're running into is this thing that is locked in place. Now you can fold it down some. When the bolt goes in there, that's what happens. It lays itself down, okay? But you cannot stick a cleaning rod in there and hold it, because there's nothing for it to lock to. You would think that this part here, once you fold it down here, boom, it would lock, but it doesn't. It just because it's spring loaded right there, as you see. Get my big finger out of the way. As you see, it's spring loaded, and it will not come and lay all the way down so you can clean it. I don't know why they designed it like that, but it is what it is. So the other scenario that we have, you see this hole right here? Let me get my little screwdriver. You guys don't want to be looking at my big fingers. Okay, you see this right here? You ain't got a whole lot of clearance there, do you? Negative there, Ghost Rider. Okay, so what Mossberg or Rossi, whoever made the gun, they've got a Phillips. Now, I don't know why they won't put an Allen screw in there, because an Allen screw would be, I think it would be better, or Allen screw head. Because guys, you see this right here? You don't have a whole lot of room in there. Okay. Now I had a bigger Phillips, if you will, to try to see that thing, and that's a pretty small. Well, not pretty small. I mean, it's kind of a small Phillips, but it's hitting. But you got to have something to get down in there, if you will. And see, even see this as comparison. See if I can get here. See, comparison, that thing's a lot smaller. That thing even has a hard time getting down there. And once it gets through, I can't turn it. You see, it won't let me turn it for some reason, because that second hole right there is smaller than the first hole. But you've got to have a big enough Phillips to get on the head, because if it's too small, you're not going to be able to turn it. Now, Craftsman is what I use here. Now, Craftsman does make a longer screwdriver like this that's a Phillips, but I don't have a Phillips. But the good thing about that is that this thing wasn't too tight, and it didn't have Loctite on it. Loctite is a thread adhesive to keep things from backing out. But luckily, the head of this thing is about the same size as the screwdriver, and so that's what I was able to get. See right here? That's why I was able to get here and get that thing to turn like this. Isn't that crazy? So you got to take that bolt off and take that bolt off, and there's going to be a little tension because of that spring. Because that spring right here is kind of spring loaded. If you can see with my big fingers, the spring loaded. So you're going to keep your hand when you take those two bolts off. I would recommend taking, if I can get it on here correctly, I would recommend, let's see if I can get this thing back here first. I can show you what I'm talking about. Okay. Alright, get that mess out of the way. Alright. I would recommend taking this bolt off first. And then, because once I found it, hold your hand like in a clamp, and then you can run, because this thing's going to be, it's not going to be in a lot of tension, but you don't want to break nothing. It's all plastic. And get that thing down, and then take that screw out. And then once you take that out, then you can release that pressure and pull that out with these. Okay, and that's it, guys. And because I found out one thing that I found out, because I haven't done this completely. When I hadn't had this gun probably about maybe 2 years, but I've noticed, I don't know if you can see it. You see right there, rust. So where this thing hasn't been taken apart, and that moisture has gotten up under there from somewhere, and now it started building up rust. I think it's just a bad design, but it is what it is. I mean, you can't expect much. I think I paid for this gun brand new, I think it won't be like $140 with tax. So, I mean, you can't expect a lot, but still, you don't want to be throwing your money away either. Money's tight. These things are Things are expensive now. So now we got this thing out, so now we can clean it. Okay, so that's the main thing here. So now you got free reign, okay, to get all the way down to the barrel to clean it. Okay, because the main thing, guys, it's not good if you got your now some people use a snake. Now I take that back. I think I did clean the barrel one time because I've got a snake on a rope for 22, and I think I cleaned the barrel that way. But I have not had this thing broken down this far. Okay, but if you're using something like this, it's just always recommend that don't clean it from the muzzle side, because now 22s are not there. I mean, it's just a little bit bigger than this rod. But what you don't want to do is get right here and that aluminum snags that barrel, or it causes a burr, and you try to go down through here and you wind up scratching that barrel as you're cleaning it on the inside. Okay, so it's best to always clean your weapons, pistols or rifles or shotguns. It's always best to clean them from the breech side, because the breech side, I don't think I've got any 22s in my office, but basically we use this 9mm. Okay, so basically your breech side is going to be just a little bit bigger, because it's going to hold or house the casing where that bullet can set, just like that right there in the gun. And then the barrel is going to be just a little bit smaller than the bullet itself. Okay, because when it fires, you got your landing grooves, your rifling, if you will, and that's what scores that bullet, and it causes the twisting. Okay, so your breech is always just a little bit bigger. Okay, that's why now I can get in here and then run it all the way down here. Now I don't have any obstruction whatsoever. So this is not something that I'd want to do every time that I break the gun down, because like I said, it's plastic, and then you don't want to wear the threads out. So this is something that you want to periodically clean it, because it is dirty. I can see the oil, and 22s are dirty cartridges anyhow. Okay, as we see, we got the casting where they broke the casting off when it came out, because all that stuff is pressurized, and this stuff is plastic, and so I enjoy shooting. It's a fun little gun to shoot, a little bolt action. I mean, it's really accurate. You go to the firing range, you could shoot that old cheap stuff that you can buy, that old, because a lot of these 22s they're really finicky as far as what type of ammo that you can shoot. But with the bolt action, it don't matter, because it's a bolt action. You don't have to worry about the pressure of the ammo being too low or too high. If you got that cheap ammo that you want to shoot, maybe that Thunderbolt or the Remington Gold, or some of that cheap stuff, or that Blazer. Blazer's a cheap ammo. Just fun stuff. Go to the range with a bolt action, and you don't have to worry about it cycling, because it's a bolt action. Okay, all right. So guys, when you get through, you just reverse everything. Okay, you just put your bolt back in here and set it back on here, and just reverse all your settings. Now, one thing that I do, since now everybody has cell phones, and one thing that you have on your cell phone is a camera. How about this? How about before you break something down, while you have it like this, when it's still in one piece, okay, boom, take a picture of the setting before you break it down. That way, if a spring or something, because I never broke this thing down, and as that thing was starting to ride, I was like, oh boy, I didn't know if there was going to be a spring that's going to fly out or anything. So I just held this thing here and just eased it back, and that way, if something would happen, if a spring would pop out and the spring had two different sizes, at least you can have a picture of what things look like before you broke it down. Okay, all right, well, I hope this really helps somebody, because it really helps me, and it helps me when I'm doing this stuff. And then when I can video, at times I go back when I forget this stuff, I can go back and pull my own videos back up, and that too, I couldn't find anything on YouTube that had anything as far as how to break this thing down to that point. There was nothing that I could find. Everything was basically with the semi-automatics and there was a few videos about how to get the bolt out, but that was it. That was the extent of everything. All right, well, we will see you next time around when I can find something else to clean. And Godspeed everybody, and thank you for dropping by, and I hope this helps. All right, take care. All right, bye.